on my hobbies, I suppose. Cars, yeah, cars are a big thing. Motor cars, motor racing. I do some amateur motor racing, believe it or not.
He may have built a career on silence and slapstick, but Rowan Atkinson's real life makes more noise than any sketch ever could. Behind the curtain is a $30 million glass mansion in the English countryside, a garage with cars rarer than diamonds, and one divorce so quick it made international headlines. This is the world of Mr. Bean, where comedy collides with sheer luxury. Rowan Atkinson doesn't just live in houses, he designs statements. The crown jewel of his portfolio is a modernist glass and steel mansion tucked away in the English countryside. It cost nearly $30 million to create, a sleek cube of glass perched above rolling hills like something pulled from a James Bond film. Minimalism dominates the design, clean lines, panoramic windows, and wide open spaces that make the entire countryside feel like an extension of the living room. At night, the house glows like a lantern on the hill. By day, it practically disappears into the landscape. It's as much an artwork as it is a residence, so striking that architectural magazines often debated whether it was a house or a sculpture. But that wasn't his only architectural experiment. In London, he once owned a Georgian-style townhouse worth more than $7 million, a sharp contrast to the futuristic countryside palace. Traditional brickwork, wrought iron balconies, and historic detailing made it a property dripping with old-world charm. Where the mansion was about glass and openness, the townhouse whispered of heritage and sophistication. To walk into it was to step into a chapter of British history, the kind of place where every fireplace and cornice had a story. Together, these two properties showed the split personality of a man who could play Mr. Bean one moment and the razor-sharp Blackadder the next. And then there are his lesser-known retreats, heritage estates tucked into the countryside. These aren't the kind of places that appear on glossy magazine covers. They're designed for privacy, the kind of homes where tall hedges, gated drives, and centuries-old stone walls matter more than architectural flair. For Atkinson, these retreats are escapes, places to think, to recharge, and to vanish from a world that rarely leaves him alone. Real estate has always been more than shelter for him. Each property reflects a part of his personality. The bold futurist, the classic traditionalist, the quiet recluse. They're not just homes, they're mirrors of a man who never fits neatly into one box. But as impressive as his properties are, they only set the stage for what most fans really obsess over, his garage. If homes are where Atkinson experiments with architecture, cars are where he lets loose completely. His crown jewel has always been the McLaren F1, the legendary 1990s supercar still capable of outpacing many modern machines. Atkinson didn't just buy one, he drove it hard. He famously crashed it, not once, but twice. One accident led to a repair bill of nearly $1.4 million, one of the largest insurance payouts in British motoring history. Most collectors would have wrapped such a car in bubble wrap, but not Atkinson. For him, the F1 wasn't a museum piece, it was a living machine. Eventually, he sold it at auction for nearly $12 million, proving that even battle scars couldn't dull its allure. That sale alone placed him in a very exclusive club of owners who had turned passion into profit. But the McLaren was only the flashiest part of his collection. Atkinson also owned a 1939 BMW 328 Roadster, a car that shaped pre-war racing culture. Elegant, light, and graceful, it was an artifact from an era when aerodynamics were still an art form. With its long hood and narrow body, it looked more like a sculpture than a sports car. For Atkinson, it wasn't just about performance, it was about preserving a piece of history that once ruled European circuits. Few actors could speak as passionately about camshafts and carburetors, yet Atkinson knew this car inside out. Then there's his taste for the dramatic, a Rolls-Royce Phantom V16 prototype created exclusively for him. Imagine a luxury yacht squeezed into sedan form, powered by a monstrous 16-cylinder engine that Rolls-Royce built only for this car. It wasn't about speed, it was about audacity. Rolls doesn't bend to whims, but they bent for him, which says everything about his cultural stature. Of course, exclusivity didn't end there. He also added a Bentley Birkin Edition to his stable, one of only 22 units ever produced. It was a rolling tribute to Bentley's racing heritage. Hand-stitched interiors, deep wood finishes, and a twin-turbo V8 that delivered aristocratic power with racing bloodlines. For most people, spotting one of these on the road would be like seeing a unicorn. For Atkinson, it was Tuesday, but he isn't all polish and excess. His Land Rover Defender Heritage Edition proves it. Rugged, boxy, and styled with retro nods to the original 1948 model, it was built for mud tracks, not red carpets. And that's why it fit him so well, because Atkinson has never been about showmanship for its own sake. He picks cars that tell stories, whether that story is of speed, elegance, heritage, or sheer eccentricity. And these are just the highlights. Over the years, he's been spotted in Aston Martins, Jaguars, and even practical everyday cars that shocked fans expecting nothing but supercars. Each choice reflected not vanity, but a fascination with engineering engineering. Atkinson has always insisted he's not a collector, he's a driver, and that philosophy makes his garage stand apart from celebrity peers who buy cars only to park them as trophies. When you line up his machines together, the McLaren's danger, the BMW's history, the Rolls' audacity, the Bentley's exclusivity, the Land Rover's ruggedness, you get more than a collection. You get a portrait of a man who approaches cars the way he approaches comedy, with precision, passion, and a willingness to take risks no one else would. And yet, even this garage full of dreams is only one chapter. His personal life has twists dramatic enough to outshine any sports car. Luxury doesn't shield you from drama, and in Atkinson's case, it sometimes amplifies it. After more than 2 decades of marriage, he shocked the tabloids with what became known as the 1-minute divorce. 24 years together ended in a courtroom split so fast, it felt like one of his sketches. Headlines erupted, gossip columns exploded, and suddenly the man best known for making people laugh was splashed across front pages for heartbreak. Not long after, he drew even more attention by beginning a relationship with a woman nearly 30 years his junior. The age gap became a lightning rod for the press. Critics called it scandalous. Fans shrugged it off. Atkinson himself seemed unfazed, living his life with the same quiet determination that defined his career. Then came the story that felt straight out of a film, the day a pilot fainted mid-flight. Atkinson, who had earned his pilot's license, took control of the plane and kept it steady until the pilot regained consciousness. It was a moment that showed him not as a clown, but as a calm, capable man in a life-or-death situation. A reminder that sometimes the comedy mask hides nerves of steel. What makes all of this more fascinating is how he kept his professional momentum rolling. While Mr. Bean made him a global household name, Atkinson resisted being trapped in that box. His razor wit and Blackadder won him critical acclaim, while Johnny English turned him into an unlikely action hero, spoofing Bond tropes with enough charm to build a blockbuster franchise. Each project showed a different facet, proving he was far more than a man pulling funny faces. And then there are the numbers. Mr. Bean has been broadcast in over 190 countries. That's a level of global recognition that rivals the biggest names in Hollywood. His comedy transcends language, making him one of the few entertainers in history whose work can make a child in London and a retiree in Japan laugh at the exact same moment. Financially, the rewards have been staggering. Between TV royalties, films, stage performances, and his savvy real estate deals, Atkinson's net worth is estimated at over $150 million. Unlike peers who plaster their wealth across Instagram, Atkinson's fortune hides in plain sight, in cars that belong in museums, in mansions that glow across hillsides, and in a career that continues to evolve quietly. Unlike many stars who cling to a single formula, Atkinson keeps taking risks. Stage plays, dramatic performances, new series. He's still reinventing himself well into his 60s. In an industry where careers often fade as quickly as they rise, his has endured for nearly half a century. Longevity this rare doesn't happen by accident. It's built with the same qualities that define his lifestyle: precision, bold choices, and a refusal to ever play it safe. The press may highlight his crashes, his divorces, or his eccentric cars, but the through line of his life is consistency. An entertainer who made the whole world laugh and then quietly built a legacy in real estate, automobiles, and cinema that could rival royalty. Rowan Atkinson may be remembered by most as a man in a tweed jacket who barely speaks, but his real life is louder, faster, and stranger than fiction. From glass mansions in the hills, to machines that belong in museums, from a divorce that made headlines to a mid-air rescue that reads like a movie script, his story keeps unfolding in ways few expect. So here's the question: if you had the choice, would you take the keys to his McLaren, the deed to his mansion, or the career that turned silence into a global empire?